So the Electoral Commission, working together with the Electoral Committee of the African National Congress, read out the names of those that qualified to stand as national officials of the ANC. Before they could undertake that, a presentation on constitutional amendments was done. A new position of the Deputy Secretary General was added to now be referred to as the second DSG. So you all know the names that were nominated and qualified. To refresh your memories, on President, there are two candidates, being the sitting President of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, and Comrade Zweli Mkhize. On Deputy President, there are three candidates who qualified, being Comrade Paul Mashatile, the current Treasurer General of the ANC, Comrade Oscar Mabuyane, the current National Chairperson of the ANC, and Comrade Ronald Lamola, the current sitting member of the outgoing National Executive Committee of the ANC. On the position of Secretary General, it's a current sitting member of this outgoing National Executive Committee, actually two, Comrade Phumulo Maswale and Comrade Fikile Mbalula, as well as the former Provincial Secretary of KwaZulu-Natal, Comrade Mdumiseni Ntuli. On the position of the Deputy Secretary General, the first DSG, it's the current sitting member of the National Executive Committee on outgoing, Comrade Nomvula Mukonyane, and another sitting member of the NEC, Comrade Tina Jomat Peterson. And on the second DSG, it's Comrade Marupeng Ramokgopa, who's the coordinator of the ANC Women's League entity, as well as Ronaldo Nalumango, who is the IPC coordinator of the Western Cape province. On Treasurer General is Comrade Bejan Nichauke, Comrade Mzwandile Masina, and Comrade Pule Mabe. So the Electoral Committee will come back to plenary to come and outline how voting is going to take place. As of now, what is happening inside plenary is that messages of support are being conveyed. And these are 17 messages of support. Fraternal organizations, formations, here in the country and in the diaspora, and former liberation movements that we have shared trenches with, that have been invited. So it has become tradition and practice over the years that they will come and deliver these messages of support. After all these messages of support are delivered, we'll discuss reports that have been tabled. At the conclusion and adoption of these reports, the Elections Committee, together with the Elections Commission, will come and outline how elections will unfold. Delegates will then break for lunch. When they come back, they will move into different commissions. They are expected to vote per province while they are in commissions, continuing with deliberations. So we are hoping that this process will be smooth. It will go as planned. You would have seen, as soon as credentials were adopted, we began seeing a faster pace of doing things. Because once we are done with the registration of your own delegates and accrediting them accordingly, then the program begins to begin to see faster movement. So we still hope to have results of officials announced today. And maybe late in the night, once those results are announced, we'll then be seized with the nominations of additionals. So that tomorrow, when we come back, we are able to start with the voting of those additionals. But of course, we'll be guided by the steering committee of conference. So where we are now, we're trying to make sure that we cover as much ground as possible, especially on the things that we were really beginning to lag behind. And once more, we must thank our delegates. They participated in all these processes that have already been undertaken. Yourselves, members of the media, were invited to the open session when Comrade Khalema and his team were presenting the electoral guidelines, as well as putting the names of those individual cadres who have qualified initially in the top 6 to be in the top 6 positions. So we don't anticipate that we will not finish the program of conference at the date when we had intended to conclude, which is the 20th of December. We'll be coming in to give members of the media updates. What we'll also be doing is that post this, once we go into commissions, when they are done, when presenters to commissions are done with the presentations, we'll be bringing in those different presenters like we did with the National Policy Conference here to come and interact with yourselves on some of the key areas that came out of those policy discussions. So that would give you the insight of where the program is at and/or what the deliberations were all about, and also allow you the space and an opportunity to ask them questions. Like we said, I've discussed with our head of elections, Comrade Mbalola, because he had done a presentation on elections, that there might be a need that they too, especially on those presentations that were done and presented at plenary, that they also come and interact with yourselves on those. We've discussed with the media relations team that aspects of our organizational report that were taken into plenary also be shared with yourselves, so that you at least have got a fair appreciation of our own analysis of the state of organization. So that will be done. If you have access to our digital ANC Today publication, you'll also notice there on ANC Today that we have done some work on the organizational report. So you can always also refer to ANC Today as an important resource around this organizational report that was delivered. So we'd like to pause there for now and pick up questions if there are any from members of the media. Can come through. All those who have questions, they can. You can raise your hands, all those who have questions, and then immediately he's done asking his, then you can come through.
Yes, sir, thank you. My question regards the counting process. Could you explain it to us, please? Will it be partially manual, partially electronic, or any which way? And how would the candidates be represented at the counting process to stop any claims that it wasn't free and fair?
Just the question. Just repeat the question again. I want to try and record it. So
You're more than welcome to. My question is on the counting process. How will the votes be counted? Will they be tallied electronically, manually, or will there be a hybrid situation? And how will the candidates, agents, or any representative of any candidates be represented so that there are no claims that it wasn't free and fair?
okay, we recognize that these are not general elections. They are elections, they are internal elections of the ANC. They are part of our own internal democracy. Because, so maybe let me make my point, simplify my point. Those who are standing to be elected in the ANC don't have independent observers themselves. Because it's an internal process of the African National Congress. Imagine with additionals, you have got about, your ballot paper has got about 240 comrades who are standing. If each one of them had an observer, it means you are going to have 240 observers. So the internal election process of the ANC as part of our own internal democracy is different to what happens in your national or general elections or local government elections. On the observer part, which is what you are asking about.
Partially, sir.
Yes. So we will have the leagues, provinces of the ANC, alliance partners will deploy observers. So already those observers have already been deployed. They now form part of the Electoral Commission. So that gets to be done all the time to make sure that there is no suspicion or doubt that there could have been manipulation of processes and all of that. We ensure that we always have a team of independent observers that is part of this exercise. We make sure that organizational structures are represented in that exercise as well.
Understood. Sorry.
And then on the counting, we always say, for now, we are still doing manual counting of ballots. And this conference will again be undertaken in exactly that way as it relates to counting ballots. Does that assist? Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Mkhokheli Bandla, SABC Radio. We know, Prapule, Uguti, the ANC Electoral Committee had tried to curb the issue of vote buying and money exchanging hands amongst the delegates. But in this conference already, there are reports that money, or there were attempts to by delegates from both factions, that of Zweli Mkhize and Ramaphosa. Those reports arrived, that happened last night and has been confirmed by a few delegates. I want to get the position of the ANC and also to check if the ANC would be able to ever cleanse itself from this destructive practice. Thank you.
No, thanks for that question. When we met here on Friday and we presented to members of the media the do's and don'ts, part of the don'ts that the African National Congress abhors is vote buying. Unfortunately, if these delegates whom are alleged to have been bought or have received some form of inducement to vote either way, only use the media or journalists to report, and they don't make the organization aware, we are then not empowered to make the necessary investigations. When your colleague, one of your colleagues in the media, brought such a question to my attention, or such an issue to my attention, I then asked them that have these delegates reported? And I could not get a straight answer. Because where there's case of vote buying, allegations of vote buying, and people produce material proof of how that purchase or transaction was going to take place, then we are then empowered as an organization to undertake the necessary investigations. Imagine if, say, about 1,500 of this near 4,400, near 4,200 delegates that are present in this conference came with such allegations and they do not provide proof to back them. What such allegations do is that they cast doubt on brand ANC. They create a credibility crisis for those expected to lead. They undermine trust between the ANC and the leadership of the ANC and its own members. So we have said that we have got to deal with these instances, because later on when you are elected in a position of leadership, if there has been some form of transacting, or now you ultimately emerged, you then struggle to gain the necessary respect that must be given to a leader of the African National Congress. So to avoid these things ultimately taking the organization down, because I often say that this issue of vote buying makes it difficult for the organization to be able to locate itself on critical matters that affect society. Because once a leadership becomes tainted in that way, it also becomes a little bit of a constraint on how that leadership executes its own responsibilities. And that is created by a simple thing, that your ability to enjoy and earn respect of your own members, again, gets to be in question. You'd imagine this, these people know that Ahman, upule uke wasinengisa man kuthi afike la khona. How are you going to be respected by those people? Because we often say the leadership of the ANC must be beyond reproach. When you stand there and make articulations or pronouncement on any other matter, the people you are relaying that to have got to trust you, have got to know that this is a credible leader. They've got to say we can rely on this wisdom. So, and we must thank the members of the media to bring this to our attention. We'll also just say on the side, not here, we get to be empowered with some form of evidence so that we follow it through with the steering committee of the African National Congress, so that those who are involved in such acts can be acted upon. We can no longer just leave these things to be allegations that fly out there, and the ANC, to redeem itself, is not seen to be undertaking some form of investigations. We have briefed our security at all security checkpoints. We have briefed our marshals on site, on access points to commission rooms, to voting stations, and all of that. That if they dare pick up something suspicious within the conference precinct on exchange of monies, they must report such to the steering committee of the conference. We have to take action against individuals who do such, because we now have got the electoral guidelines that Comrade Kgalema is presiding over, and these electoral guidelines makes it easier for you to campaign openly. That is why, for the first time, you came across lots and lots of digital posters. Number of journalists were asking me when we're discussing how this new campaigning is running and whether it creates constraint or not for the ANC, and our answer has always been consistent, that it's quite helpful, because under the new guidelines, you now have to you can make declarations if you have received some form of financial support to be able to run your campaign. You can do those declarations, because society will appreciate that the ANC's desire to build an ethical developmental state, to have a meritocratic leadership, to make sure that the leadership that you have is also based on merit, is also advanced through what this organization is doing. They are doing things on merit themselves. This leadership is showing that they are ethical in their own undertakings. They are able to make the relevant declarations where they've received support towards their own campaigns. And the electoral guidelines go further to even outline what kind of support is permitted. Support with monies, helping a branch or branches that have declared their support with monies for airtime, for data, because these days they would run a branch. In my branch where I come from, they've got a branch WhatsApp group. Now because WhatsApp has even developed, they've now gotten into something called the WhatsApp community, where they can bring in different members. So you can imagine, I've seen many others would have used such methods as part of their own campaigning. It would be transport to get members of a branch into the BGM. It could be resources towards payment of a venue, or buying a snack, catering during that branch general meeting, or when the campaign team is meeting, a list of members of the campaign team and the work that they are expected to do or they are doing. Monies for fuel, for mobility, and all of that. So those things are clearly defined on what resources of campaigns can be used towards. So I'm just saying, if as part of promoting, progressive citizenry, we could be favored with the information ourselves and be allowed to use our own mechanisms to conduct investigations. And because some of these issues are matters of public interest, we can also, whoever will be in the leadership can always come and clarify those out in the public.
Good afternoon. I'm Khelang Bata from Bloomberg News. I just wanted to get some clarity on the number of voting delegates, because the credentials report stated 4,426. But I think during the nominations process yesterday, someone from the Electoral Commission may have mentioned 4,436. So if you can just get some clarity on the number of voting delegates.
Well, I'll get the full number for you and clarify. I don't want to put a number here and I'm also not giving an accurate one. Numbers are important in a conference. So we just have to, we are within the precinct, we can always make sure that the team, once it has clarified that, once it has managed to get the right and accurate information, we then share it with you.
Hi, Mr. Mabe. It's Dennis Dalper from Netwerk 24. I just want to confirm with you the time that delegates will start voting. And then also, is it a guarantee that we would get the result tonight? And then also, if we get the result tonight, we are already 24 hours behind schedule. What is the plan to end the conference in time? Thank you.
Well, we will be able to give that kind of an update once voting begins. Well, the steering committee will have to then say, seeing that we are already 24 hours behind, what do we do? Do we need to have a full-on discussion of all the different commissions, in all the different commissions, or are we going to be limiting time to make sure that we can meet or fulfill what was on our own program? So we should be able to give that clarity later on as well.
Piet Kroukamp from the Vrye Weekblad. Another scourge, except for the vote buying, is that of slates. But slates are conceived in factions, and then that results in slates, and that results in vote buying. So I must credit you. You don't seem to appear on any slate, which is really honourable. Don't you think one should address the factions issue first before you can address all these other issues? Because surely that's where it's conceived in the fact that there are factions. As long as there are factions, there will be slates. As long as there are slates, there will be vote buying.
Well, what the Kgalema Motlanthe process has done, it has opened up for campaigning, where those that want to stand for leadership can campaign openly. But of course, when you get to this point, you will find that different comrades who have been nominated for various positions themselves forge consensus at this point that, look, to avoid a proliferation of pieces of paper doing rounds at the venue of conference, having the name of Steve Mabona, Amos Paho, and all of that, because something of interest happened when delegates were busy registering on Friday, on Thursday, there at Omonde. They already had, maybe you might not grasp it because it's said in a different language, Stepezana. They had people with Stepezana there. So it's a smaller than a piece of paper. A person has written their name there. As delegates were getting into the venue, they were given that paper. Please, when you go to NEC or additionals, remember me. That is why, during the nomination process, we were stuck with 10,000 names of people who were nominated to be in the NEC. 10,000. Because of this new open electoral process of the ANC, that seems to be embraced by the fact that you could have 10,000 names. It means the process is being embraced. So we said that we want to deal decisively with slate politics. The introduction of the electoral committee, as well as the adoption of the electoral guidelines by the leadership structure of the ANC, is part of those efforts to make sure that we deal with slates. But a list alone that has got a list of comrades who are standing for positions of, who are nominated to stand for positions of leadership, it's not a very hectic thing to do. And it's not a very expensive thing to do because normally it's just lists that are photocopied. And when you are in a flow of conference, what cadres usually do, they again forge their own consensus. Say, okay, because we're not going to be doing radical change maybe on the direction that the African National Congress need to take. But because there seems to be consensus on the approach we are taking on how issues must be resolved, maybe as part of this, let's have our own one common list to be able to do that. Those are done, but you don't really want to locate those within the realm of slates. Because slates are well coordinated, structured to fulfill a desire of this or that grouping, and sometimes can be divisive. This whole nomination process of the ANC have actually begun to expose the fact that if we give our branches the space to express themselves, they can actually contribute in the strengthening of the African National Congress, even without ourselves having to push names down their throats. So there is a commitment on our part to deal with the notion of vote buying, because an organization such as the ANC, our size, doesn't really subscribe to those. Those things are an antithesis of what we stand for.
Velani Lutiti from Pule Mabe.
You'll come in afterwards.
I just want to get an update. You promised yesterday that you will check for us if can we interact with the delegates, and also is the top six still, the outgoing top six still going to come and interact with the media?
Okay, can you?
Hi, good afternoon, Pule. It's Ranesh Dharaj from the SABC. I'm kind of glad you mentioned the Electoral Committee guidelines, because just on that, the initial plan from the Electoral Committee was to stagger the voting at conference. So what we were supposed to have was the President, the SG, the Chairperson, and the TG's positions to be voted on first, and then the, obviously now it's 2 DSG posts and the Deputy President. So when did the plan change? Because the ultimate aim and objective was to do away with slates, as you mentioned earlier, and a winner-takes-all approach. So when did the plan change? Was it because of the time and the schedule that conference is running behind? Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Pule. Moloko Mloto from ENCA. I have two-pronged question. The first one is, how's your campaign as the candidate for the TG position going? Are you getting promises from some delegates from other provinces perhaps? But the second part of my question is, you guys, the three of you, have now been joined by a female, Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa, who was nominated from the floor for that position of TG. In the interest of being seen to be promoting women and trusting them to hold strategic position, because I stand to be corrected, but I don't think as the ANC you have ever had a female being elected to the position of Treasurer General. Why can't you, the three of you as males, agree that you are withdrawing your candidacy and you allow her to be elected uncontested?
When are we bringing the top six? Is that the question? So I've spoken to them about that, and then once I've gotten an indication, I will be able to advise members of the media. I had not gotten that indication, but I have put forward that proposal. We would like to do that ourselves, because it's just good for the media village itself and for yourselves, but also for them to also be able to advance what they perceive to have been their legacy as the top leadership of the ANC. So we'll raise that. Actually, the resolution itself on staggering the voting, we have clarified this question. We have to clarify, we can do so again. The resolution itself was talking about staggering of all the top 6 positions, all the 6 positions. So it means you're going to have 6 ballots. Now, you can see the other point, that the time factor. When provincial secretaries put this forward, the time factor was also at play. So it was really that. But because of the way the nomination processes went, it was a tedious process. Tedious. You have seen it. There was even a attempt, others have even taken this to court. Of course, the court dismissed their case, but it was tedious. So it must tell you a story that if we don't make our processes so solid, people can go to court and win against you. What would you do? It will undermine your whole processes. So the fact that you could even have people going to court like that, it means that there is something that we did right with these processes. Allowing and courts dismissed those, allowing our branches to be at the center of these nominations. Moloko, just to clarify, here I speak in my capacity as outgoing spokesperson. It would be unfair of me, while addressing the media, to talk about an internal democratic process of the ANC that has also produced my name as a candidate, because I did not influence my candidature in any way. Unfortunately, I can't resign from myself. I can't say because I have been nominated, whose nomination I've accepted, I can no longer be able to talk to the media. For your own benefit, and for the benefit of many, because I also had some clapping of hands. Let me accompany that clapping of hands as it relates to the empowerment of women. That Rule 6 of the ANC Constitution stresses the point that in the overall structure of the National Executive Committee, you must have 50-50 representation. So maybe it was at this point that we're supposed to have those hands. Because the structure of the NEC of the ANC, when you look at it overall, 50% of those represented must be women. So that is already in the Constitution. The electoral guidelines that we have adopted also talks about biasness towards a generation. Now, a generation in the ANC is not located according to gender. No. It could be generation of youth, those that came from the youth movement and all of that. So as we raise the question you are raising, also talk about the importance of intergenerational leadership in the African National Congress. You have to look at the profile of our country and then say, does the leadership of the ANC today reflect the profile of the country? You have already been taken to 2 sessions, 2 open sessions. First, when the president was delivering his political report, and secondly, during the nominations of officials. You yourselves have had sight of the profile of the delegates that are in this conference. So where there are issues that relates to our candidature, individual cadres, because I'm not the spokesperson of people who are standing. If you say, why can't the 3 of you? So you are making an assumption that I speak for Bejani, I speak for Mzwandile, I speak for the ANC, I speak for this big organization. I don't speak for candidates. So they can speak for themselves. But also, I can't use a platform of the ANC where I've invited the media in my capacity as outgoing national spokesperson, come in and start talking about my campaign. If members of the media want to talk to us about such you can just grab us on the side, but not on this platform. We've got to respect this platform, the decorum of how we interact with the media ourselves, so that my own comrades, I mean, imagine there are others who are standing for the position you are mentioning. They are not here to speak for themselves. They could go and accuse me of having an unfair advantage because I've got this interaction with the media. So, Ndate Mologo, if you want to talk to us about these other ones, we can do them outside. We have done so before. We have spoken to many media outlets, and so are other candidates as well. We have just avoided debates ourselves with fellow comrades who have been nominated and have qualified because we understood this to be about internal democracy in the ANC. The leadership that we elect only leads the African National Congress. It's limited to that. So we're fine. So if you feel strong about the question, we can do it, but not on this platform.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Mabe. Oh, it's afternoon, actually. Sorry. Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well. Paige Muller from Sunday Times and Times Live. We chatted yesterday about load shedding and how Nasrec was being powered. I believe Daily Maverick brought up the question. I just wanted to check because City Power has released a press release saying that the South African Police Service, Nat Joint, did request that the Nasrec precinct be excluded from load shedding. Does the ANC know anything about that request? Were they aware of it? How is Nasrec being powered at the moment?
No, but really, I mean, you are saying it yourselves. Net joint, subs. Huh?
Aware of the
but
request.
How do we enter? We are not subs. We can't enter there. Subs is not us, subs. South African Police Service. Yes. Okay. Because you see, unless the question is intended at something else. But the South African Police Service is not part of any structure of the ANC. We hire a venue, and you understand the profile of, and maybe to be fair to you, the profile of people who attend this conference is such that it requires its security to be tightened. The president of the ANC is the president of the Republic of South Africa. So how those that deal with security detail, often we are told that security issues are not discussed like that. Those that deal with security issues, what they would have detected and all of that, it would not be, because you don't want to make a security environment vulnerable. You allow the relevant teams that have to attend to that to apply what is sufficient to deal with the security of an area and any other threat that they might have picked up, or any other possible. I mean, for instance, when we drive our cars here, we first have to go to Search Park. Cars have to be surveyed and checked if they are not carrying any weapons and all of that. And we're not asking them, why are you doing this? Because we regard those as falling within the arena of security, in the same way that we'll treat this issue. I guess these issues have got their own sensitivities. So it's good that City Power communicated, because this question was first raised by the Daily Maverick, if I recall. It's good that they have clarified it. It only goes to show that they are transparent enough to share that something like that has been done, that there is no information that is being concealed, so that it doesn't come across as if there was some underhand or secret operation that was taking place to try and conceal this information. So we must commend City Power and the South African Police Service that they've been able to place this out on record and exonerate the ANC. So at least the Daily Maverick and yourselves are now aware that the ANC never applied for any exemption. Yes. So if you report about it, it could be in the positive as well. So we indeed did not know ourselves. So we commend them for making sure that they are transparent about that kind of an arrangement. It could be a security issue, we don't know. But if it's done by subs, and subs being in the security cluster, it means it's a security issue. You and I, understanding the sensitivities of security, we may want to treat it as a security matter as well. Can we just move towards closure? Because this ends, because we did ask that colleagues from the media must raise their hands. We take questions at once. Yeah?
Mr. Mabe, I don't know if you've clarified on this before, but what is the difference between the second Deputy Secretary General position and the first one?
Well, we have had intense deliberations in the organization when we ultimately considered the introduction of the position of the second Deputy Secretary General, including consideration that the position of Treasurer General shouldn't be full-time. So we said that what we need to consolidate or build on in the ANC is to make sure that you build in a strong secretariat to do organizing work, to do campaigning work, to do monitoring work as well. And what do you monitor here? You don't just have to monitor the work of branches, whether they've got programs. You also have to monitor the work of your deployees in government. You monitor, you do sort of, and we started doing it now. We introduced something called an elections barometer. And what that barometer does, it allows us to zoom into all topical issues that affect the ANC and how the ANC is being perceived out there. And on a daily basis, from the SGO side, we'd get that barometer. And we'll see, okay, this were by-elections, this is how the ANC fared. There was a protest here. This protest was caused by this business forum in this specific township, and this is how issues were attended to there, So now, but now you need a focused attention on that kind of a thing. So it will fall under the SGO to do that work. International relations, numerous others. Your membership system, so a number of things. So that alignment would have to then be done to make sure that there is no duplication of roles in the organization, especially there in the SGO. Each one of those positions has got specific tasks that they are meant to fulfill. The SGO primarily deals with the overall administration of the African National Congress. Well, I'm still in the employ of the ANC. I'm sure that when I finish in my role as spokesperson, I will still have 3 months to dust my table and all of that. And, while the new spokesperson gets into their role. My letter of appointment in the ANC, because I'm an employee of the ANC, I get my pay slip there at work. My letter of appointment is signed by the Secretary General. Matters of employee relations fall within the SGO. So there's quite a lot of things. HR, DC, coordination of the work of subcommittees sit within or reside within the SGO. So you have to strengthen the SGO to empower it to be able to do that work. Convening of NEC meetings, convening of NWC meetings, communications, both internal and external, done through them. For instance, the national spokesperson position reports directly to the Secretary General's office in between NWC and NEC meetings. The national spokesperson of the ANC, as a reportee to, as someone who reports to the SGO, also sits in the National Working Committee of the ANC to assist the SGO with those communications efforts. So you could just imagine the amount of work that the SGO is expected to do and conduct. So I'm sure the incoming leadership, whoever will be there, I don't know. Democracy will decide. The incoming leadership will be able to then communicate on some of this, because society, members of the media do deserve to be clarified fully on what is the difference, what are the extra tasks that will be done by the second DSG different to those that will be done by the DSG. So that will be done. Part of the issue, part of the motivation of why we have that position are the issues that I've just raised now. I'm sure you're out, Tsegofatso.
Good morning, well, good afternoon. Tsegofatso Makola
You see
from
what you
Tax
did
FM.
with the morning?
Yes.
Now everybody
now-
thinks it's a morning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a long day, but it feels very short. Nonetheless, I'd just like you to clarify in terms of, you spoke about how NAT joined appealed to City Power without communicating with you as the ANC about, being exempt from load shedding. So could you confirm that? And secondly, if that's the case, right?
No, can we just help?
Okay.
I never said without communicating with us.
So
No.
okay.
No. If as national spokesperson of the ANC, I'm not aware of something, it doesn't mean they did not communicate with the ANC.
Okay.
I'm just saying, the ANC is a very big organization. Big. Since 1912, big, more than 100 years old. So I'm just saying, I would really ask that those issues that have got to do with external parties outside the ANC, you are welcome to take it up with them.
Sorry. I think it just becomes quite tricky in terms of, if you're saying that we must appeal to external factors when you indeed are the spokesperson, we expect to get answers from you, especially on matters like this, because then my next question would have been, as the ANC, if indeed you were aware, do you not have some sort of ethical obligation to investigate how such arrangement was made?
Should we now get into security issues? Really? Are you asking us that question? I don't think that let's help you. Let's help you with, I think we need to assist you here. The net joins. In net joins, there will be someone from the ANC who is part of net joins. Understand? So net joins is actually, it's a national joint task team that would look at all the security factors that affect our own conference. To give you a simple example and to make you understand how these security issues work, that's why when you drive, if you drive coming here, if you drive to come here, or if you are dropped, whichever one, you use the entrance just behind here. That entrance is a dedicated entrance only for the media and DIP. Everyone else who comes on that door, the police know they must have a tag. There must either be a media service provider, there must be from the media, got media tags that you are all having now, or there must be from our own DIP. So almost all the entrances you have around Nasrec are designated to specific groupings of people that are here. We know that they know that, okay, this access is used by members of the National Executive Committee. So all those things are discussed within net joins. I can come here, make noise to the police, no, allow me in, I'm NEC and all of that. But if I'm not using a designated entrance, they won't allow me. Because we have to know at any given time how many warm bodies are we having around the media village. So it's a very important security feature, that one. So if I'm not fully informed about something, it doesn't mean that relevant bodies in the ANC or relevant structures in the ANC that represent us in net joints are not aware. I went on to commend City Power and SAPS to have placed this out there, because I'm sure that when they did something like this, it was them having considered a number of factors which fall outside my scope of work. Okay? Can I take this opportunity to thank all of you once more for continuing to report to the public out there, be critical of our work, the work of the African National Congress, and where we want to take the country. We don't take the role you are playing lightly. We respect that role, and now and then are able to pick up what we may not have known because of the things that you bring forward. And everything else that you bring forward here, if I don't know, I always go back to the relevant bodies to seek answers, because we don't know everything ourselves. We are just messengers as spokespersons. So we can't come here and claim to know it all. No. They raised something about electricity the other day. We went on to ask. We are being asked here about an issue of exemption. Can we get the relevant bodies to clarify? They raised an issue about vote buying and delegates reporting this. We go to the steering committee and the disciplinary committees of conference to report. There are these issues that are coming up. Can they be followed on so that we can attend to them? So we don't take the things you raise or bring up with us lightly. Can we thank all of you at this point? And again say, our media relations team will give you an update on developments so that you can be able to plan. We'll also update you on whether the outgoing officials will be available for a direct interface with yourselves. Thank you very much.